Thanks. Thanks. I am Councilmember Louis Vieira, Chair of the HART Board of Directors. Please silence all electronic devices for the duration of the meeting. Welcome to the March 6th, 2023 regular Board of Directors meeting, which is now called to order. The meeting format is hybrid, with board members physically present at the HART Administrative Office here at 1201 East 7th Avenue, Florida Conference Room, and participating via communication media technology. Please look at your screens or devices where an image of the flag is displayed and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand if you're able to do so. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Attendance, please.
Councilmember Vieira.
Here.
Commissioner Owen.
Here.
Director Williams.
Here.
Mayor Kastner.
Here.
Director Frazier.
Here.
Director Hudson.
Here.
Director Johnston.
Here.
Commissioner Kemp.
Here.
Director Knight.
Here.
Commissioner Myers.
Here.
Councilmember Schisler.
Here.
And Commissioner Wolstel.
Here.
You do have physical quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it very much. Okay. I know some members here have to leave in a little bit, so I wanted to, if I may, first take up the issue that I'm calling a special call meeting for. We're not going to be doing any votes, so we can take that, I believe, before public comment on this. And I know that our staff is working diligently with all of our board members on getting a meeting set up, hopefully within the next week. So if I may, I'll move into this item. And I know beforehand, Council, y'all wanted to say some words, and you're obviously welcome to do so.
Good morning, David Smith, General Counsel for HART, along with Julia Mandel, who's here with me. What I wanted to do was explain to the board exactly what the scope of our recommendation is and why. You've been reading about it in the paper, but unfortunately that's not a complete report, and some of it is slightly inaccurate. And I don't mean that in derogation of Ms. James. She does an excellent job, but I was unable to talk with her when she called. I got her message after her deadline had passed, so I did not have an opportunity to explain some of the facts that she was unaware of. Let me say, first of all, that whatever Attorney David Adams is doing, the results of his investigation will not be secret. First of all, when the investigation is complete, the confidentiality requirement drops, so it's no longer confidential. In addition to that, handwritten records cannot be arguably, or even records of any kind created investigation can be argued to be personal notes. Both Julie and I believe that they are nonetheless still a public record. So this information will be a public record. It will be provided to the board. It will be available to the public. So we would not make a recommendation, as you read, that somehow this whole thing be retained in secrecy. That is not appropriate in our view, not legally correct, nor is it policy-wise correct. So I wanted to make sure you were aware of that to begin with. Now, there may be a debate about whether these are public records, but we were previously represented by counsel for labor and employment in Orlando, who litigated the issue and was told it was a public record. Now, as the lawyers here know, arguments can be made in court, but you generally try to follow the precedent that's been established. Now, that may be a circuit court in Orlando, may not be binding in Hillsborough County, but nonetheless, it provides us some guidance. There's also case law I'm aware of that says handwritten notes or other notes, dictated or otherwise, are part of a public record as part of a search for hiring. So just to be clear, we believe, unless someone convinces us otherwise, that would be a court, that these are public records. So they will be public. You will receive them. The public will have an opportunity to review them. So let me, I don't know exactly what Attorney Adams has found, but I have some ideas because we have had some conversation about the process. And whatever he has found and whatever he creates will also have additional utility. We are going to recommend that, because he has advised me of some systemic issues that he thinks are problematic and need to be addressed. We want to make sure that this is not a continuing saga, as it has been at HART. And there are some changes that we believe need to be made, partly in terms of how this board operates, the information this board gets, the way its general counsel functions, so that these kinds of things don't sit down below and fester. That's what happens in these situations, and it causes a bigger uproar than is necessary. When we have a problem, let's find out about it quickly. Let's intervene quickly. Let's try to nip it at the bud, so to speak, so that we don't have these kinds of issues, so we constantly have a revolving door with our CEO. It's not good for the CEO. It's not good for the organization. So let me make sure you're aware of a couple issues also that are somewhat subtle. I don't appear to have the settlement proposal. Is that it right there? Well, I'm pretty sure I've memorized all 7 bullet points, so I'm pretty sure I memorized all 7 bullet points. One of which I want to suggest to you has been very carefully crafted and therefore could have been easily understood. I think it's the 2nd or 3rd bullet point, and it says that the investigation will cease, no report will be prepared, no presentation will be made to this body. That was done primarily to try to have a clean break. The issue at this point, besides the scope of the investigation, I'll get that in a minute, is the impact on HART. This is not good for HART. It's not good for the CEO. We've had this uproar before. We need to make sure if we don't have something that is a real problem, that we try to address the best way to handle that. Now, if you look at the employment agreement, there are several bases for termination for cause. I've gone through each of those bases for termination for cause with the investigating attorney. And based also upon our information of the allegations that were made, we are highly dubious that anything that has been found to date rises to the level of termination for cause. If we don't have termination for cause, what we have is then severance under the employment agreement. And the provisions of the employment agreement would govern because we're bound by it as a contract. So what we are looking at is a situation where the proposal on the table is a proposal essentially that embodies the remedies received under the employment agreement. The 20-week severance pay is in the employment agreement. The payment for sick pay, vacation time, et cetera, is in the employment agreement. There are a couple of issues that are not in the employment agreement, and that would be the length of time the CEO stays. And I think that's an issue that this board should carefully consider, bearing in mind that the investigation commenced due to some complaints by people who are in the rank and file of the organization. Their concerns are important. This board obviously needs to take those concerns seriously, and I know it does. But it also has to be evident to the public that you're taking those concerns seriously. One of the things you may want to consider, going back to the public records for a minute, even if it's problematic, I'd recommend we put in the severance agreement a provision that says it will be delivered, the notes will be delivered to the board, so that we don't have anything arguable about that and we find ourselves in a lawsuit about whether or not these are public records. So that would, I think, disabuse us of that problem or basically eliminate that problem. Now, in terms of the other substantive provisions, as I've described, the monetary provisions are in the employment agreement. The time period by which the CEO is proposing to stay is not. That is an issue that this board needs to think about and needs to take appropriate action. From my 10 years plus in this organization, I know that it is not geared to respond rapidly. You do need to find someone who would be able to step in and take over the management. So the offer was, I think, intended in good faith to continue to run the organization for a period of up to 90 days until you have an opportunity to find somebody, and beyond if necessary. But again, that's something you can debate and you can decide. I would recommend, this is somewhat outside of the scope of a legal argument, but I would recommend you consider a moratorium on hiring and firing, just to make sure that the people who are concerned about the environment, if you will, management environment, if you will know that they'll be protected in the interim. That's something this board, I think, can determine. Or it can determine that there will be no terminations without approval of the chairman or maybe without approval of the board. This board has plenary authority, so you have the ability to do those things. One of the things that Julia was going to talk to you about today is the need to restructure your general counsel position. I have worked as general counsel for the Aviation Authority, the Sports Authority, Port Tampa Bay, and this organization. Each organization has its own unique idiosyncrasies. This organization is different from the Aviation Authority. The Aviation Authority generates almost all of its own revenue and, in fact, is a huge business venture. The way that operates is much more like a CEO running a corporation. This Transit Authority runs on public money. It's governed by elected public officials. It is a different breed of cat. You need to have, in my opinion, the board needs to have, in my opinion, a little more hands-on approach. Some of your policies dissuade you from that. I know there's been efforts to find out what the rank and file are thinking, and when people from the board show up at various locations, that's to be discouraged, mostly because of safety issues. But this board does need to have its own separate independent source of information. And I don't mean that to suggest that what the CEO tells you is wrong, but it is affected by what the CEO is seeking to accomplish. It's just human nature. One of the things that I've heard done in other boards is you have union location on your board. I don't think you can do that by virtue of the statute and the charter that creates this organization. You could have an ex officio member of a union that could provide you input if you choose to do that. So I think there's some policy decisions that come out of this very process. One of the things Attorney Green is going to do, as he told me, he has found what he considers to be significant systemic issues. So one of the things he will do as part of his review will be provide this board a summary of what I'd call best employment practices to try to help this board and this organization not have to go through this again during your time in service to this board. You may know, I think this is 4 out of 6, maybe 6 out of 8. It's been an ongoing issue since Sharon Dent, which was, I think, back in the 80s. So it suggests there's a problem that goes beyond individuals. It's a problem that needs to have a management solution, a policy solution, and we're suggesting you consider that very seriously. So the reason we're recommending this settlement is because we believe it is in light of facts I know and the facts I am gleaning to the extent Mr. Adams shares anything with me, and I'm trying to stay out of that because if you don't approve this, you're going to be the tribunal. We don't have anything that rises to the level of termination for cause. For example, if you look at the issue that's most glaring, the fact that a person worked 2 different jobs. That was not Ms. LeGrand who worked 2 different jobs. The working at 2 different jobs is a violation of HART policy by the person who's working 2 different jobs. As I understand it, when Ms. LeGrand was apprised of the fact that this person was working 2 different jobs, they were terminated or asked to leave. That's not a violation of your policies. So there is a lot of discussion about management style and about how that is perceived by those who are being managed. There's upset with regard to what they consider to be excessively authoritarian. As Ms. LeGrand has told you, you hired her to clean up the program. She's done that. Sometimes that can be perceived incorrectly. Sometimes it can be pursued too zealously. I'm not making any judgment in that regard. The thing is that as a matter of law, a hostile work environment requires something more than just aggressive oversight and aggressive management. And in talking with our retained expert employment counsel, he is of the opinion, like I am, we don't know of anything at this juncture that rises to the level of being termination for cause. That's why we would recommend settlement under the employment agreement other than termination for cause. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. I don't think it was clear. And hopefully that is a sufficient explanation. I'm sorry, I had my notes, but I didn't, they're somewhere in my briefcase. But I think I've covered all of the points I wanted to talk with you about. But I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
And thank you, Mr. Smith, for that. And beforehand, I know we have some members. I got some things I want to say. I'm sure everybody does. So my thoughts for today was to allow us to have some sort of a discussion on this with final disposition of this issue at a special call meeting, just so that we can have time to think and ponder these significant issues, because we literally get this on Thursday and today is Monday. So just to give more time, because, you know, we want to analyze the issues, et cetera, et cetera. Now, let me inquire, who needs to leave early here today? Okay, Mayor, Castor, Commissioner, okay. So a lot of us do, okay. So how about then, before I speak, because if maybe we'll just go around this way then, and we'll start, if you have anything. Yes, sir.
2 quick questions. I guess the first is just reminding us, I think, in the public too, what the scope of the investigation was, and if we have a sense from David Adams how much more time he needs to complete it if we go down that route.
The initial investigation came about because of several different things. One was there was an employee working at HART who was discovered to have 2 different jobs, which is a violation of HART policy. It's in your policy. That obviously brought appropriate outrage that the person was doing that. In addition to that, there were some complaints received by this board by some people who work in HART, claiming that the management style of Ms. LeGrand was aggressive, hostile, unnecessarily contentious, and threatening to them, and that it was therefore a hostile work environment. Now, as I said, there's a hostile work environment as a legal matter, and there's a hostile work environment as a management matter. So what was done was the board decided to hire an investigator to look into those two issues. So that was the initiation, as I best recall it.
How much more time or where are
Okay,
we?
that's right. The second part of your question. Essentially, Mr. Adams was down to maybe one more interview, and then the need to interview the object of the investigation. One of the things you have to do when you have an investigation like this, you must provide due process to the accused. Use the word accused, but essentially the object of the investigation. So there was going to be an interview with Ms. LeGrand and her attorney, Mr. Wenzel, who's with us today, in order to go over her view on exactly what had been told to Mr. Adams. A standard, basic to the fundamental tenets of justice in our system. Let the accused have an opportunity to be heard. That has not occurred. So as I understand it, there may be one or possibly two other persons to interview besides Ms. LeGrand, but they were trying to schedule the interview with Ms. LeGrand and her counsel, and that was all that needed to be done on the investigation side. Now the question is, what kind of product? It depends on what he writes up. If he writes up systemic changes as opposed to a complete and final report, writing the report is sometimes very difficult for people. I know I'm an inveterate reviser. When I write an appellate opinion, it's night and day for whatever it takes to get it done, because I hate to be wrong, and sometimes it's unavoidable, but I hate to be wrong, so you want to get it right. So that I could take a week or two, but I don't think more than about 10 to 14 days, because I did have that conversation with him.
Okay. I mean, I know lawyers never miss deadlines, but it sounds like most of the interviewing has been done, but it's the
Yes.
report writing. Okay. I'll let everyone else kind of share their thoughts. I mean, my general thought, though, is that I think we're debating a cure before really having a diagnosis. That makes me a little bit uncomfortable. I think it's heartening to hear for the institution that perhaps some of the findings are where they are, but I think this is falls a little bit short of what's fair to HART in its current formulation. That's all I've got.
Thank you, sir. Okay, who had to leave early next? Commissioner, was that next? Go ahead, if you wish. Go ahead.
Could I have you back up there, Council?
And if I may, while Mr. Smith goes up there, I'd encourage you to not just ask questions, but also share your thoughts. I'd also encourage you to try to keep everything to 6 minutes a person.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll be fast. As a practitioner of law, I've never seen a settlement offer come over in the way that it did. Usually they're confidential. Usually us as a board would probably have an opportunity to see it first before the public. And not that this shouldn't be completely transparent, but as you know, settlement offers are just that. They're settlement offers that we can counteroffer as a board. Explain how that process from here is going to work, or if you can explain how that process even originated, because I received a kind of a generic Word document over showing a proposed settlement offer, and just tell me how the process works as far as how we're going to be doing these settlement offers. Are we going to be making them out into the public, which I'm not necessarily against, but are these confidential or not?
This was not submitted as a confidential. You're absolutely right. Usually, communications with regard to settlement are confidential between the parties until an agreement is reached. This was submitted, I think, in part because the desire behind the submittal was to try to bring this to closure, let HART move on as an organization, and let Ms. LeGrand move on in terms of seeking future employment. That's partly why I don't believe they want a formal report. Without a formal report, excuse the term, there's plausible deniability. You've got a he said, she said sort of thing. So I think this offer was structured in a very unique way. You're absolutely correct. Normally, if we're in litigation, which we're not, if we were in litigation, it would be a confidential communication. We would have a closed session. We can't have a closed session because you're not in litigation. So as a consequence, this was a public record when it was received. I did not give it to the press. Matter of fact, I've not even talked to the press since I received this. So that did not come from me, but it was sent to this board quickly. I think if not that day, the next day. So we did want you to get it before you were reading about it in the paper, and I think we accomplished that. And I also called everybody to try to give them a heads up. I received callbacks from almost everybody. But no, this is not going to be a standard procedure in negotiating.
So, and I think that's important. So
Yes.
we can be making counteroffers. Are we going to follow that same process? Are we?
You can certainly counter this proposal as it exists. You may differ on the time periods. You may differ
On severance, we can differ on anything
You can. The problem is it's a contract matter though too, so we have to be careful what we can and cannot do. And lastly, I want to put this, it's very difficult when you're talking in public about certain things that could possibly create liability.
Yeah.
I just think we want to make sure we are clear that we're treating all people equally under contracts that we negotiate and sign.
Sure, and I agree a little bit to that. I disagree a little bit with you on that. I mean, when you're talking settlement offers, you're kind of moving outside contract terms in a lot of ways when you're settling. So, and again, we don't know the contents of the investigation, so we don't know if it's for cause or not. So if it's for cause, then absolutely a settlement offer, we would be moving off our terms of a traditional settlement that would basically fulfill the terms of a contract. So that would be my only slight disagreement. You had also mentioned too that, and I want to make sure I'm paraphrasing you here. You said that some terms of the settlement offer you agreed with or disagreed with how it was perceived in the public. Is that what you said? I'm just curious to what you meant by that.
Yes. There was an article in the newspaper that said this is secret. It's not secret.
Okay.
It's not going to be secret. It's not going to remain secret. It is not.
Okay, great. And I don't know if this question probably isn't for you. One of the things that's mind-boggling to me is that there's not somebody that can come in immediately during the interim and take over this position. Again, I don't know. This is more my comments. That is a real concern. And if as we go down this road next and choose another CEO, you can't have just all Indians and no chiefs in your business. This goes for a business with 2 or 3 people or hundreds and hundreds like HART is. It is just mind-boggling to me that we may be in a situation where we could not cut ties immediately and have somebody that could step in. So those are really concerning comments, because if we do come into a settlement situation, I am one of those. I think that, and this is just from years of legal work and dealing with some of these situations, when you're cutting ties and you settle with a party, that's it. You move on immediately. You do not keep the people around. So those are some of my initial concerns, and I'm under 6 minutes, so go ahead. Yep.
Thank you so much. And next, Mayor Castor, you had to leave. Go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry to have you keep walking back and forth, David. But, so what I heard before, and this is the first time that I had heard that did you not state that from what you understood, there's no basis for termination at this point?
That I did say that, and I concluded that on 2 observations. First of all is the fact that when I talked to the investigating attorney to advise him of the offer we received, he said we should take it and run. So I don't think he would say that if he who has the most information at this point would say that if we thought we had termination for cause.
All right. One thing I want us as a board to not lose sight of here is that the individuals that we're here for, those in our community that need the services of HART. You know, it's one of the most underfunded bus systems. Clearly, there are systemic organizational issues. To your point, Commissioner Owen, that there isn't someone to stand up. And these, we've been through 3 CEOs in probably the same number of years, and these issues have come up with the hostile work environment. As I've stated before, I've been through organizational change on a large scale, and it doesn't make people happy. And you know, we can continue to drag this out, which clearly, if there's a need for that, then we can take this all the way to the end. We owe the public a factual report of what is going on here in HART, but. I think that as long as we make this report publicly available and that we don't have if it comes out that there isn't grounds for termination, that we do have to pay attention to this contract, because The last thing we need to do is to continue to spend more money in this investigation that just takes away from the services of those that we are here to serve. And I just want to finish my comments by saying that with these systemic organizational changes in this organization, with the lack of funding, that I fully support the exploration of a merger between the two bus systems, Pinellas and Hillsborough, looking at the benefits on all levels, from the service that could be provided, the potential funding that could be available and/or saved for our bus systems. And I think that we've grown as a region to the point that that needs to be explored. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sir.
And Commissioner Myers, you said you had to leave as well?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. My comments are very brief. One, I would like to see us receive the investigation, have the special call meeting as you so suggested, Mr. Chair. Then we make our decision based on all the information. It becomes public. And with the CEO, whatever decision is made at that time, we should be able to make it. But sitting around today, we don't have any documents in front of us. It's just what we receive from legal counsel. It's not enough to make a decision on. I think in all fairness to the public, when we voted last December for the investigation, as a board member, I'd like to see the investigation, know what it says, and then move forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Commissioner, I think you had to leave early. Commissioner Kemp, or?
Yes.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I'll say, I do think we're kind of in the dark if we don't have the results of the information that others have before we even go further and talk about this. So I would agree with Director Hudson that we do need to see something and know more. The first I heard about some of this was just minutes ago, some very important information in terms of the recommendation just overall about termination. So I think it's really important to see that. I think it's important for the organization. I think it's important for the public. I think it's important for this board to move forward. During my time here, I've definitely felt as though we had a systemic issues that where we need to really look at best practices. And that's why I'm very pleased, and that's the first thing I asked about when I was contacted. What are we going to do? What meaning will this have in how we move forward? Because we have, I've experienced through the last 3 CEOs, I think, very systemic organizational problems, management problems in terms of guiding the board, or the board guiding the organization. I feel as though if these kinds of disruptions and issues happened, for instance, at the county, I just don't think that they would be permitted to go on. I don't think they'd be permitted to go on in the city of Tampa in terms of just, moving along and passing on the issues without information about how we systemically deal with them. And I'll say that that's why I was so pleased that APTA was coming in to offer us what I think is a framework. And I have called PSTA and tried to figure out some of the things that they were doing. I said, do you have complaints all the time that, that there are issues internally? And I know we're not the same, but they didn't have that. I'll say in the first couple years that I was here, there was not that turmoil. There was not that issue. And so I would very much say that is what the target is how we start to fix this. For instance, PSTA has like a SWOT analysis, and if there's a problem with an employee, they go up, they go down, they get a team in, they try to figure out, can they work with it? What can they do to keep the person or not? Does that have to be done? This is like in a management type of issue. At the county, the county administrator needs approval to change the top positions out, not to fire, or although that would be shocking if that happened, but to kind of change the org chart. That needs to get the approval of the board to do that at the top levels. At PSTA, I understand they have surveys, consulting surveys of their staff and workplace once a year to get an overall picture of the health. And we actually had that prior to Mr. Limmer being here. We had a person coming in, and I thought they were doing good work and heard the reports, and then just they disappeared. So I think we have some very serious systemic organizational issues that we have to deal with. I do think, and I will continue to say, we have done very well in terms of, I believe, really working with our bus service, our routes, our efficiency, our service, all of those things I think have done very well. And just because I just have to respond, I couldn't disagree more that a merger would be really a disservice to the people of Hillsborough County in terms of, that's already been studied. It wouldn't create the best circumstances for us responding in any good way. And we continually hear about how this would bring in more money, and it never has. This has gone on for years. It never brings more money. It will bring less resources, less opportunity for us to work with the people of Hillsborough County and serve them in the most efficient and best way. We will have even less opportunity to make sure that our resources are used in the best way for people in Hillsborough County.
Thank you, Commissioner. And then next, I'll briefly speak, and I'll begin then with Commissioner Wassel and just go down the line. Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, go ahead.
Chair Vieira, Director Frazier is on the line, and she had a time constraint as well.
Of course, I'm sorry, Director Frazier, I didn't see you. My apologies. You may speak, ma'am.
It's okay, I lowered my hand. I wasn't going to repeat what's already been said.
You sure? Okay, thank you, ma'am. I got to get better at seeing the folks online, so my apologies for that. Yeah, so just a lot of thoughts here, and again, my envisioning for this was just to give board members, because we're being asked by the public on this, et cetera, just a time to speak in terms of our thoughts on this, et cetera. I have today what I've always had, I think, throughout this process with our CEO and different allegations is what I call an open mind. I think an open, objective mind, et cetera, and that's what we all, I think, here have, and certainly what we all should have over here. We are being asked to consider a lot of information in a very short amount of time. That's just the nature, it's nobody's fault, just the nature of the process that we have here, which is why I requested for the meeting. I think that if we were to decide on it today, we'd essentially be trying to fit in a size 40 waist into size 36 pants, and it's just not going to fit. So I'm glad that we're proceeding with having more time. For me, it's a balancing act on some of the issues that are really, really important to HART and the public. Number one is transparency. Transparency includes accountability. Transparency is making sure that the public knows what's going on, everything that's happened, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm confident that we can do that as a board. And I think that's very important. Number two is our hardworking employees at HART who keep us running every single day, some of whom risk something speaking out. We have to respect that 110%. We have to go through the process where we respect it. I think that's very important. Third is taxpayers and good fiscal stewardship, which is we spent money in investigation. We want to see to it that if we take a path away from it, that we have really good cause that supports those pillars, but that we also respect taxpayers whose confidence we're going to continue to need to make robust investments in HART through transparency. And then lastly, as the mayor said, and really it's first, which is the people that rely on us every day. That's the real issue. For so many residents and folks here in Hillsborough County, HART is a real lifeline. Whether it's veterans going to get their care at the VA, people with disabilities, lower income people looking at working 10 hours at a minimum wage job to race home and take care of their kids. That's what HART is all about. about, and that's what this process, I know, is all about. My only issue that I've had, and I'm not going to ask any questions because Lord knows I've asked tons in private, and I don't do that, but one thing I did want to bring up, which is on some of these issues that we're being asked to consider that may very well, by virtue of a contract, be self-executing. I look at here with regards to the 20 weeks, the 401K, et cetera. I don't know if this board should be asked to approve, and I'll put that for consideration, either for now or next time, something that is essentially self-executing, asking us to essentially stipulate to the law of gravity. If you want to, you may. Go ahead.
As was pointed out, settlements are an iterative process. This is just the beginning. We're recommending it, but that doesn't mean it's in its final form. But one of the things I would suggest we do is that we provide you a summary of exactly what the contract provisions are, walk you through termination for cause, walk you through the remedies, et cetera, so you can look through the document and you can be comfortable, at least from a legal standpoint, as to what your obligations might be. You are hit on a variety of issues that are policy issues, that are not legal issues, that are solely within the purview of the board. I understand that. Our focus is principally upon avoiding liability. That doesn't necessarily exhaust the topic.
Sure, and thank you very much, Mr. Smith. And also, you know, we have a lot of lawyers on this board, and a lot of times our job is to mitigate reasonable risk, to talk about the worst-case scenario, the best-case scenario, the middle way, and I appreciate everything that our counsel does in that, because that's really not easy. I've been in that situation all the time, and it's not easy to tell people the different ways in which it could go and the risks that are out there. You know, if I'm hearing the board, a lot of folks want to at the very least, put the report to some use, at the very least, which is, we have the report, maybe, and again, I'm just throwing this out there, it could be used for further handling in terms of HR issues in the future, so that taxpayers don't feel that the funds have been wasted. Just a potential idea that's out there. So a lot to talk about. I won't belabor the point, but Commissioner, if you'd like, you may, sir.
Nothing.
I'm shocked. Thank you. And I say that jokingly. Thank you, sir. Board Member Knight, if you have anything, sir. If you wish to have any questions or anything, or
listening to everyone, great information. But I just feel we voted on it, including our CEO. Agreed to an investigation. I feel the taxpayer, and I got a lot of calls that feel that should go through with it. I think so. Also, I feel that we have people in place to move on. I mean, to keep this organization running. And whoever in charge, whatever decision they need to make to get the right people in place to do it. I don't feel that we in such a crisis. I've been talking to different ones and know the strength of some of the ones who are part of the executive team, and I feel that we should continue on.
Thank you, sir. Board Member Schisler, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with most everything that was stated here so far. It's, ditto, ditto, ditto. I do believe, though, that we need to complete the reporting to the board. I was taken aback a bit last week when this first came out, because it's like, oh, okay, we're at ninth hour, the 11th hour, excuse me, and it's now we're going to switch gears. A little disappointed with that, but I believe that the information that hopefully will come out of this will help us to fix any systemic issues that may or may not be present. Whether the information arises to termination for cause or invokes the for cause part of the contract remains to be seen, but it gives us, as a board, information that we may or may not already know. This is the third time in my tenure that we're going to enter into this process, so hopefully we can get it right if there's something wrong and move forward so that we don't appear ineffective. okay? Because if we appear ineffective, then the rank and file doesn't know what to do, and then the whole organization becomes somewhat schizophrenic, and what are we doing? Or if you can't, if the big bosses can't get it right, how can we be held to the level of responsibility? But we cannot, as Mayor Castor said, we cannot lose focus of who the ultimate benefactors are for everything here, and that's the people that we serve. There are neighborhoods that rely upon us making the right decisions day in and day out. Then the CEO and the C-staff has the opportunity to make their decisions, and they rely upon us getting it right. So we need this information so that we can do the right thing and move forward with it. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have any thoughts at all, board member?
Yes, the report is a bust, so we will await the report from my standpoint, review the report, and as you said, take some time to think about what is in the report and make some purposeful decisions about it. I've always said transparency is key, so we have to be very transparent to ourselves as well as to the public, and make sure we make the right decisions going forward. And the report itself will give us direction, as well as identify some areas that we've discussed and uncovered, and make sure that we set ourselves up to make sure that there is the right processes in place going forward. And I think going forward, we have to ask more questions. Why? And until we understand that we know what we know, and then we move forward. But it is a learning experience, and we will commit to transparency ourselves and making sure we are accountable to this report and accountable to the public.
Thank you. Thank you. And, if you wish, and then if you, go ahead. Oh, thank you. Beforehand, Board Member Frazier, again, I have to do better with that. Go ahead, ma'am. Oh, and you're on mute.
Thank you. You think I would have listened to that by now. I just wanted to make sure I understand what we're doing moving forward. I know we have the special meeting that's being scheduled. Are we receiving something in the interim before the special meeting, or are we receiving the results of the report at the special meeting? And is there anything we're receiving in the interim that we're going to be considering?
And thank you. I guess Mr. Smith or Ms. Mandel can answer that.
That's an excellent question, and it's a little bit ambiguous. I would think that what we should do is provide the board information that currently is available, obviously. Need to speak with Mr. Adams and find out. I'm hearing two different concepts being used. There's the concept of the report allowing us to address systemic issues, and there's the concept of the report addressing what Aristotle would call praise blame, which is results in investigation in terms of the object. I think principally we're looking for systemic, but I'm not sure about that. But I'd recommend that we're having a second meeting to find out what the board wants to do. And I think it might be good to provide some potential alternative proposals, counter proposals if you prefer, in terms of the terminology. I think it's important for the CEO and her attorney to see the thought processes of this board, what concerns them, and if they have some proposal they want to make sure we address the legitimate concerns of this board and yet still accomplish something they're seeking to accomplish. I think we should garner that and try to have that available in advance of the next meeting so you have a chance to look at that. It's not good practice to have you have to respond on the fly. Although attorneys frequently have to do that, that's not what we should expect of our board. So I think we need to get you more information. We need to find out what the response is from counsel for the CEO. And because all we have right now is a proposal they put on the table. And I think we've heard comments from the board with regard to aspects of that aren't quite acceptable. And so they need to respond to that, in my opinion.
And before, if I may, really fast, did you have anything, or?
I'll go ahead and make a couple of comments real fast.
And then
if
I'll,
that's
and then I'll
okay.
do second rounds. Thank you.
And I'll try and be quick because I think it's going to really echo a lot of what's already been said. I feel very good now that the investigation will be open and we are going to get a full copy of that. That was, I think, critical for us to be able to move forward in any way, especially with some of these, not only the issues that we're having to probably deal with on Ms. LeGrand's level, but also on the systemic issues, which I think have been festering for a while here at HART and need to be addressed as soon as possible, because our riders need to be able to have these problems fixed, and they need to have them fixed quickly. So as far as the process for us right now, we need to get that investigation, we need to get the investigation done, and we need to get it done quickly. I think, again, back to the festering part, it seems like there's been a whole lot of, we're going to go and we're just going to keep on going along with the flow. But when we have an issue that is this important, that we need to be able to do something, we need to get this done. No more just waiting around. We need to get it done so that way all parties can be able to move on in the best way. But again, our riders are going to be able to move forward and know that the dependable service that we strive to have is going to be there. And I know we've already said a lot of different things. I just want to be able to make sure that this gets done and it gets done quickly and accurately. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Commissioner Myers, Mayor Castor, then Vice Chair Owen. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm going to make a motion that we have a special meeting, special call meeting, receive the investigation, any reports from legal counsel. That would include the systemic issues that we're talking about, and set a date for our meeting, March the 20th or March the 27th.
And if I may, do we have to take public comment before voting? That's what I thought, yeah. 'Cause
Yes,
we
sir.
weren't. Yeah, so we can vote on the special meeting. I didn't want to vote on any substantive issues before us, but we can do that, I guess, after public comment, if I may. And Mayor?
Okay, now I say this without being an attorney, so I wonder if there's some type of a compromise in this, in that if the current investigation indicates that there is no wrongdoing or cause for termination and comes down to with a hostile work environment, he said, she said, I think our focus is clearly on the violation of double dipping or employment. We make that report available, the report that exists now, so that the rest of the funding isn't spent. I don't know if we could get a cost estimate on what the remainder of the investigation and a final report would cost. But if all of that information, the facts of the case, in essence, are available, then we could move forward, make all of that information available to everyone prior to this meeting, which I think everybody's looking for in an expeditious manner. We wouldn't have to continue on with the investigation, and then move forward once we've consumed that report, had an opportunity to discuss it, talk about the contract negotiation and exit plan. That's it.
Thank you, Mayor.
Real quick, can I get you one more second? Just because, what we're also going to be asking you for, you said you're going to prepare us, what report are you going to provide us in the meantime? Again, could you, here's what my concern is, and because this is out in the open in the public, we're dealing with Florida statutes. I know 443 like the back of my hand, but maybe not everybody does, okay? So when I deal with a client, I tell my client, or when I deal with a board, I say, we are going to act like we are going to trial, that we are going to be trying this case. There is a possibility that we end up in court and we end up in trial, okay? So we need legal analysis from you as to the report, Florida statute, the code of ethics. So I guess what I'm asking is, I'm a little bit concerned because everything that you're going to provide us, correct, will be public. So that would be any of your suggestions, your legal analysis. What you're telling me is that will become public, correct?
Yes, what I do in that instance is I try to provide you non-problematic aspects of it, explain 443, explain the contract, et cetera, just walk you through it, leaving my comments for us to have a colloquy in private so it's confidential. That's not secret, it's just something you need to protect the potential risks to the firm, I mean, the client, in your case, you. But yeah, well, the summary will be all of the background facts you need to analyze adequately what the situation is. And I'll talk to Mr. Adams, David Adams, and find out if we can get a summary from him in terms of, is this for cause or not for cause? And which is an essential element of your calculus.
Okay, yeah. Then that's what I just wanted to clarify, because this is unique, where we're dealing with settlements, legal analysis, and suggestions from your attorney that
Right.
can become public, which are never public.
And thanks for clarifying that, because a lot of people don't understand that. And maybe I didn't make that sufficiently clear.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for your discussion here today. Okay, let's next go to public input. The rules. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were. Of course you may. Go
Thank
ahead.
you.
Pardon me.
Thanks for the opportunity. I know that this has been a pretty unique situation, and I've said on the record on several occasions that I welcome the investigation, that I felt that having the results of the recommendation and the recommendations from the investigation would help HART move forward. There was also a commitment that this process would be done expeditiously, and it would be completed in 60 days. Today is day 100. As you've heard, I have not been contacted. I have not been given an update. This meeting has been very informative because I've learned a lot, and I have not been scheduled for an interview. As I have stated before, this is a very stressful time, being in an organization, being under investigation, not just for me, not just for you, because I recognize this is stressful for you as well, but for the employees. For the last 100 days, I've seen men and women working really hard, keeping their heads up, and having a lot to deal with. We have a very significant financial situation that we've been very transparent about. People are concerned about their jobs. They recognize that next year we're going to be short, the year after that we're going to be short exponentially, we're going under. We have all of this going on, and I can say that when I started here 2 years ago, I was the 6th CEO within a 4-year period of time, and I started during a time where the previous CEO was still undergoing an investigation that went on for 9 months. I will repeat, I welcome the investigation. I welcome the opportunity to get beyond all of the allegations that were presented. I welcome the opportunity to find recommendations to move the organization forward. And I had an expectation that this would be done as expeditiously as possible. Where I'm sitting now, where I was sitting last week knowing I was walking into a board meeting where the first thing on the agenda was a report out on an investigation where I had not been contacted. There was no meeting scheduled on my calendar. I came to the point where the best opportunity for the organization may be to have some closure and for me to move on so that the organization can move forward. In hearing the board, if there is a commitment to continuing this investigation and there's a commitment that there will be true closure in an expeditious way, I'm willing to stay the course. But what I am asking for today is a true commitment that this will not continue on for 9 months, because that's what I walked into. So day 100 is where we are today. If we're going to continue on for another 100 days, another 200 days, another 300 days, it is too much for the organization. I'm not suggesting that it's too much for me. I knew what I signed up for. As I stated, I walked into an organization where the previous CEO was under investigation. But it's a lot for the organization, the employees, and the community, especially since we have some serious challenges that we must address in a short period of time. We're starting our budget process, and people need to have the confidence that they will have stable leadership as we move forward. And right now, I cannot say that my employees have that confidence of the stability of the organization as we are working to address the challenges that we're facing. So thank you for the opportunity.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I should probably add some information to that. Partly, the investigation has been a little longer than we anticipated, because there's been so much reorganization within HART that some of the files are not able to be obtained. Some employment files are incomplete. The HR department is understaffed for various reasons. They were trying to correct it. So Mr. Adams has taken more time than he anticipated taking, but he's very close to being done. And in addition, there were discussions, as I understand it, between Mr. Adams and Ms. LeGrand's attorney to schedule the meeting for March 2nd, for which she would be interviewed. That would be the closing of the investigation. So we are probably 10 to 14 days away. So if we want to stay the course, we can stay the course, and I'm sure we can get Mr. Adams to provide you the finished product within that time period.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So just to clarify, I do not want to give the intention that anyone is doing anything nefarious, Mr. Smith. As I stated, I have not had a meeting scheduled. So there's a difference between having a conversation that one will be scheduled versus having something actually scheduled. And the reality is, in order for this investigation to be done, I would say fairly, and looking at the outline of the next steps of the process, it doesn't just end with the report. There was a memo that was sent out that stated that the next steps in the process, and I don't have it in front of me, were a verbal report out, then a written report out, and then some hearing, I believe. I'm looking at you because I don't have it in front of me, but I know it was a memo that you sent out. So I just want to get a little more clarity. It's my understanding that the process doesn't just stop with that, right? Am I misunderstanding what the memo stated?
No, how this will unfold is, first of all, if we're moving forward, we'll get Mr. Adams's report, 10 to 14 days. It will be presented to the committee. You will have an opportunity through yourself and Mr. Wenzel as counsel to provide rebuttal information and evidence to that report. And we will continue, I would hope, these discussions about how would be the best way to separate, but at least the board will have the information requisite for it making an informed decision. And then, depending upon what happens, we may come to a mutual agreement. I know part of what you're trying to accomplish is to minimize your aggravation and harm to the heart. And we appreciate that, and the board appreciates that. But I think what we're hearing today is they need more information to be comfortable that what is going to be done is correct and right for HART and for the community. So if you contest that, then we would have to come back and have some kind of presentation in front of this board with your advocacy and the report by Mr. Adams. I doubt that will be the case based upon what I understand our conversations have been to date. I think we can get it resolved.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And I didn't know you wished to speak, so my apologies for that. Okay, next we go to public comment at 3 minutes a speaker. Public input, the rules for public comment participation are included in your packets. There are people scheduled to speak in person. Staff, please proceed in facilitating public comment.
Yes, Chair. The first person who signed up was Rick Fernandez, and he is a virtual speaker, and we did confirm he was on the line earlier.
And before Mr. Fernandez goes on, how many folks do we have virtually live?
Virtually, we have 1, 2 in person, and 2 statements,
Great,
sir.
thank you. Go ahead, Rick.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, and good morning to the board. I appreciate your courtesies. My name is Rick Fernandez, 2906 North Elmore Avenue. That's in Tampa Heights. I chair our Civic Association's Transportation Committee and am involved in several other volunteer efforts related to Transpo. I want to incorporate my written comments by reference. They were submitted yesterday. I'm here today because of concerns that were raised after reviewing, I believe it was 2 newspaper articles that suggested this board would be asked to support what appeared to be a cover-up and payoff to the CEO. Now, David Smith's comments have calmed me this morning, as have comments from the board. Clearly, full disclosure is needed, and it seems all of you know that, and you're on the right path. So I thank you for that, and frankly, as comments were being made over the last hour or so, I was crossing off a lot of things from my prepared comments, so this will be shorter than had been anticipated. Not long ago, 57% of voters supported a sales tax that would have funneled millions to this agency. Clearly, people in this community care about HART and need the services that you provide. We care enough to want to know what's broken and what needs to be done to fix it. I thank you all for continuing the efforts to find those answers. We need you, and I mean no disrespect whatsoever to the current CEO. I'm sure that you stepped into very difficult circumstances. But we need you, and we need you to fix this for all of us. I thank you for your time and courtesies. Godspeed, and I look forward to following your efforts going forward.
Thank you very much, sir. Now that Mr. Fernandez is on, I want to make an inquiry on having a sufficient number of quorum for votes, because I see we lost more than we anticipated. How are we doing with taking votes?
If we lose one more member, we're going to lose quorum.
Okay.
So, and my feeling
if you
is we're going to likely end up losing quorum.
Yeah.
I'll second Commissioner Meyer's motion.
Can we can do this legally before public comment, correct? Or?
If you want to go ahead and take that action before the end of public comment, technically you're not supposed to, but I think in this instance, since it's a procedural question,
Okay.
you can go ahead and take that in terms of setting up another meeting, and you as chair also have that authority as well.
Okay, I hereby take it. And so, Commissioner, make your motion, please, which is seconded by Vice Chair Owen. Go ahead, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And what was that proposed date? I mean, I guess you'll say it.
March, okay. The motion is that we have a special call meeting, receive the investigation report and the reports from legal counsel on systemic issues, and set a date for our meeting, special call meeting, March 20th or March 27th.
Second.
Okay, and just for the record, I'm open all of the 27th, and the 20th, I'm open after noon, just for the record.
May I also share for the record, March 20th is also a board committee day, so if you do it on the 20th, you will have at least 5 members who will already be here.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Myers, seconded by Commissioner Owen. Roll call, please.
Chair Viera,
Yes.
Vice Chair Owen,
Yes.
Director Williams,
Yes.
Director Castor, Director Frazier,
And Michael, wait.
Director Hudson, Director Johnson,
Yes.
Director Kemp, Director Knight,
Yes.
Director Myers,
Yes.
Director Schisler,
Yes.
Director Woolston. Motion passes.
Okay, and now we've had our CEO inquire on action items. May we, yes, ma'am.
On a moratorium, firing and hiring at this point before we move
That's
forward.
substantive. We have to take public comment before we
Yeah.
can have that.
So unfortunately, we'll have to wait.
Okay, I just,
And action items, may we vote on those before public comment?
No, you
That's what I
really
thought.
cannot. You have to take public comment under
Is there
Florida
anything that-
statute in order to take substantive action.
Yeah, no, and that's fine. It happens. Is that okay? Okay. Thank you. Okay, well, let's continue with public comment. Thank you very much.
The second person signed up was Mr. Gary Cloyd. He is in person.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the HART Board of Directors. As you go through this process, one of the things that House Bill 1397 would look at would be the advantages and disadvantages of a merger. Given what's HART's situation with a maintenance facility and everything else, some things have been talked about going back pre-pandemic about how we can look at regional transit. If HART were to have the funding to expand, a lot of these routes are FDOT funded anyway. My guess is between the FDOT secretary and everybody in Tallahassee, what's going to be interesting here as legislative session starts tomorrow, in the second half of the legislative session, you might have to look at some arguments on both sides. There were even some cost-cutting measures maybe 5 or 6 years ago where procurement people from HART were going over to PSTA, and they were looking at some things at that time, and that kind of fizzled out. What'll be interesting is once the manpower issue gets addressed and as you move forward, there is a pool of money there. The idea is how do you sell the agency and how you sell the taxpayers will be real interesting. if you can show that you were to expand and use that maintenance facility to your advantage, would 60-foot buses be in a discussion too? Because I don't think this is just about bus service. This is actually about expansion of transit from here to Orlando. And if you can show them that that can happen, you possibly could avoid a merger. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
The next person signed up was Jason Marlowe, and he had provided a comment. His comment is, it's absolutely outrageous that the HART Board would even contemplate sweeping the malfeasance of CEO LeGrand under the rug without giving the taxpayers what they are owed for their $28,000, an actual account of why our county's transportation agency is incompetent. Anything less than a full accounting of why this agency has come undone at the seams is in fact, as Commissioner Wolstel said, a slap in the face. I absolutely urge the HART Board to have a full and public discussion regarding CEO LeGrand so that this agency can finally move forward towards a better future. Thank you and have a great day. And then following that was another written statement. HART Board members, I understand you will be considering next steps related to the CEO investigation referenced in the TVBJ article. HART CEO attorney recommends ouster of CEO Adelie LeGrand, Tampa Bay Business Journal. Please accept this as public comment by one very concerned citizen. Nothing short of full disclosure is acceptable. Anything less will be viewed as a cover-up and leave each of you and HART vulnerable to claims of impropriety. This could lead to DeSantis swooping down and putting his puppets on the board. It is possible. I hope this is obvious to all of you. Finally, understanding fully that the public does not have the facts, that after all is the point of the message, I find it shocking your general counsel would recommend a cover-up and pay off to the CEO. This only fuels speculation that the issues presented run far beyond the CEO to other senior staff and perhaps even to members of the board, past and present. I ask that these comments be circulated to the entire board and entered into the record of your June 6, 2023 HART Board meeting. Following that, our fifth speaker is Jesus Perez Garcia, and I hope I didn't butcher that.
Good morning. You didn't, you're good. Well, I had to change up my speech a little bit. Chair Vieira, members of the board, Ms. LeGrand, well, whoever's left. I think the bickering needs to stop. Like, y'all keep talking and like riders keep being late everywhere and they think it's our fault, but we're just wasting our times here. There are so many skeletons in the closet and you just keep pushing them in. And my only allegiance is to the customers and to the community. We don't have a replacement. Oh, Owen left, of course. We don't have a replacement for Ms. LeGrand because we're running on fumes. We have a fair amount of upper management. I would say an exact amount, not too much, not too little. And we have plenty of staff. Not enough to answer to all the awfully specific questions that you keep asking without realizing how much time that takes away from the actual work we need to do. So you don't even have time for us, for the community, for the customers. You cannot put out 2 hours of your month to come here and commit. Ms. LeGrand very kindly said that the 20th there'll be a committee meeting, so we will have 5 board members here. Will we? Today, all 12 of you were supposed to be here, and half of you bailed already. So, of course, I butchered my speech. I actually forgot to turn on my timer and everything. I usually, when I don't have a guide, I go long, and I don't say things the way I meant to, but I think it's going all right. Oh, thank you. Oh, I do have a minute and a half. Great. So, I think your questions are valid. But you need to be mindful of how long it takes to do all that research that you ask us to do. We're here to serve the customers. We're not here to serve anybody's ego. We actually serve the entire community. It's not about the most vulnerable, although we gladly serve those, because somebody has to. We serve the most vulnerable, proudly so. We also serve the middle income that's trying to get rid of the $800 a month expense that is a car. We also serve the wealthier that keep complaining about traffic. What do you think if you get rid of the bus? Where do you think those people will go? They'll all lose their jobs? Maybe half of them will, but the other half will be out there on the downtown interchange, just blocking it and blocking it more. About the merger, we're open to a conversation. We're not unreasonable. But we're already struggling to cover all 1,000 square miles of the county. Unless PSTA is balling and has a lot of money, there will be no win there. It's just a way for the state to slash funds. If you want reference, ask DeBarda how that goes. If you'll excuse me, I have a lot of work to do. I don't have time for this politics. Thank you.
Chair, that concludes everybody who is pre-registered. I do not know if there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak.
Hello, my name is Nephthys Proctor. I'm pretty sure you all are familiar with me, and I was not planning on speaking until I heard what was going on. I give you a hand clap, Ms. LeGrand. It doesn't feel good not to being able to communicate with somebody in a reasonable amount of time. It doesn't feel good to have your head on the chopping block and having to explain with a quiver in your voice that you get ready to lose your job. I've been through all that up under your term. You know, everybody taking advice from lawyers and people in suits. But have you all come to people who have dirt on their knees, who have mental issues because they have to deal with the customers cussing them out, and they just want to make a dollar to be able to take care of their family? You know, I gave HART the mercy and the grace to listen to me. And guess what? I paid for it. I have no job. I was only given 21 days on my severance, and I only had 7 days because I was given that during the holiday. Nobody got in contact with me, so it was taken off the table. And because I gave HART the mercy and grace not to sue them, guess what? I'm left with nothing now. I'm left with what I'm doing right now. I am the community. I have 4 teenage boys right now at my house who I have taught on crutches. I can barely walk, but I taught them how to change the alternator and the thermostat. These are the type of people who you all keep from serving the community. Because I got tired of doing, you know, just little stuff. I got tired of giving single parents free car repairs and teaching kids in the community to do this. I want to do something better. That's why I joined the HART organization. But being the first African-American female, the first female master painted body tech, the treatment that I've got after 2 years of being stayed there has been atrocious. It goes beyond Ms. LeGrand. These issues was persistent before she even became part of the board. So it's not just her who you all need to look into. It's also other people in this room who's sitting in here who works up under her or who have been working before her, who also contributes to the downfall of HART. Like, I'm speaking from a person. I'm speaking from the heart right now. I have nothing to lose. You all can't fire me. You all have retaliated against me. You all have soiled me. You all, HART have did everything to me that they can. And I'm going to continue to be up here because I'm still serving the community, even without the HART logo behind my chest, in front of my chest. Because I took this job seriously, and to be railroaded the way I did, how you can't serve the community if you don't even serve the people who want to serve the community properly. Like, I have no animosity against anybody, but when you all put money before you all put the people, you all are going to persistently keep having these issues and these problems. And I'm just a person, you know, just speaking. You all gave her the grace of giving her 20 weeks of severance. I've been here almost 5 years, and I only got 8 weeks of severance, and I only got 7 days. 7 days during the holiday to decide. And when I tried to communicate with somebody to discuss the severance, guess what? It was taken off the table, so I was left with nothing. And I was told to get counsel. I don't want to sue HART because I want to be a teacher for the public.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you all. I'll be back next meeting.
Okay, next.
Excuse me. Good morning, Connie Burton. I'm usually watching at home, but I wanted to come this morning because of all the chatter inside of the community. The problems of HART did not start today, and it's not going to end unless we have a firm commitment from this board to deal with it as a public service for this community. This constant kicking the can down as to why HART revenue is not up to par is something that all of you should realize, in the lack of service that is being provided to the most vulnerable members of our community. So no, it did not start with her. But what we're concerned about now in our community is that if you're thinking that an easy fix is going to occur because she's forced out, that you've solved the problem. You simply will not have solved the problem if you don't commit to being a good public entity. It's really appalling to see how fast board members left this morning, because we want your full attention. That not when you're asking for additional dollars and pennies from out of poor working class people's pockets, that you want to show some endurance toward us about HART, but you're committed for the full ride. We don't see fairness in this process right now. We are very concerned that if she leaves or forced out and the next CEO comes in and have to deal with the same problem, we want a more transparent accountability and a relationship with this community, because half of you ain't gonna get on the HART bus today. Ain't nobody up here on HART bus. But the community that need HART need to see stability. And what we don't want to see is a quick bloodbath by you all thinking that the problem is going to be simply solved by the termination of Ms. LeGrand. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, please.
Good morning. Yvette Lewis, president of the NAACP. Born and raised here in Tampa, rode HART pretty much all my days. This system is broken. It didn't just start with y'all board members, but I'm looking for y'all to fix this. And I'm sitting here, and I watch it on TV at home as well, and I'm sitting here looking, and some of y'all, I mean, what's going on? I don't understand what is the problem that you have so many board members and you can't get it right. You can't get things better for the citizens who need HART, who rely on HART to get to work, get their children to school, just to go to the basics like a grocery store. And my concern is if you don't get it right, then you'll have somebody like Big Brother come in here and want to merge us with other cities, and then we lose everything. So I just want to let you know that everyone is watching. I'm going to tell you right now, there is no way we will accept or a merger, because what might be an initial reaction for them may be different from us. So that's one thing we will be advocating for. And then you also have to look at the fact that if the transit tax didn't get passed, maybe it wasn't us. Maybe it was y'all. I don't understand. A board this size can't get it right, or can't get it halfway right on behalf of the people. A lot of y'all represent the community. I see a lot of y'all in the community, but I don't see people actually really speaking up for those that are there. My suggestion, take all your cars away for at least a month and y'all get on the bus and ride. Or better yet, spend time and come sit in the NAACP office and hear the phone calls that we have regarding that. And I'm sorry that the other board members left, so I'm not just targeting the ones that did take time out of their schedule to stay, but I'm just looking at all of y'all because this is what I see now. But I just really want y'all to fix this. The NAACP is here. if you have any questions for us, if you need any answers, we're here to help. But if you don't fix it, my concern is that Big Brother is going to come in and take it. And we don't need that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else here for public comment? Okay, there being none, we'll go next to approval of the minutes. And we can't do that.
We have lost quorum.
Yeah.
And so the situation, since these are action items and the items on the agenda, with the exception of the workshop at the end, and maybe some reports, are all requiring an action that we cannot take, my recommendation would be that you do have your committee meeting scheduled for 2 weeks from now to utilize that time.
Yeah.
And also schedule the remainder of the action items for a full board meeting. Because we've got to be able to get some of these things responded to.
Ms. LeGrand.
May I ask a question? Thank you. Is it possible to call the meeting on the 20th a special board meeting so that we could actually vote on the action items and take, or whatever, is there a process?
That's my intent, and I'm sorry if I didn't articulate that correctly, that we basically reschedule this board meeting for the 20th. We're going to have to renotice that because of the way your rules require and the way the statute requires it. We can't just, and there's some case law that's recently come out, we can't just move the item, but, move the meeting, but we're going to need to at least reschedule this, renotice this, and my recommendation is, since it's already on many people's calendar for the 20th, is that we just go ahead and put that maybe at the beginning prior to the committee meetings. And if there's items that are right now scheduled for those committee meetings, those can happen afterwards.
Okay, so we will take all items that we're going to vote on today and put it on the 20th?
That's my recommendation.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Now, question, we have some presentations today. Would those be moved as well, or?
The presentations that don't require action can occur. There's also the workshop that I had asked to be scheduled relating to the general counsel. I'm going to recommend that we wait on that, because I really think, in light of some of the other conversations that we're having, and as Mr. Smith indicated, that is an issue that is going to take some discussion with the full board, and I would recommend that we wait for that. The only comment I am going to make on the general counsel discussion and the policy discussion is there are pending contracts right now for all of your legal services that are about to expire. It's my recommendation, and I'm making this recommendation notwithstanding the fact that Gray Robinson for the state of disclosure is one of those contracts. But in order for all of your legal services to continue, my recommendation is that those get extended for 60 or 90 days, and whatever action is necessary to do that, so we can have that conversation, because how you deal with your general counsel services will inform all of your counsel services. So as it relates to that issue, any of the other presentations, if we want to proceed forward with those are fine, but let's go ahead and include moving the workshop.
Okay, yep, so I hereby, any comment from members? Yes, sir.
Again, thanks. 2 points. We talked about even with the firing, terminating, or however you said us in the interim. I spoke on this a couple of months ago about transparency. Any information or whatever should come to the board members, and I don't think that's been happening. So we should know what's going on. We're very serious about that and concerned about some of the decisions and things that are going on. Also, I've seen on the paper some of the ones that have been interviewed. I'd like to make sure and suggest that that meeting on the 20th, that is a complete of the interviews, the ones that have been interviewed, not just some that, for obvious reason on it, but want to make sure that everybody be transparent on everything that's going on. My concern.
Yes, sir, and yes, ma'am.
And to maybe further this discussion, I know that there is we have the remainder of our items today that need to be moved so that a final action can be taken. There was 2 dates that were put out there by Commissioner Myers as it relates to the special meeting for the remainder of the investigation discussion, and one of those dates was the 20th. Perhaps the thing to do is to go ahead and utilize that date. And maybe we do that all in the afternoon if that's the desire, because I know you had mentioned that you were available only in the afternoon, or either that or swap out the committee meetings and have that be the day that not only we finalize that discussion, but we finalize these items that are remaining on this agenda, as well as the general counsel discussion.
Yeah, no, I would like to have everything held and heard on that day. I think, not the presentations, we can move through those briskly today, but obviously any voting issues and concerns that at that time, I think that's wise, so.
And that
Okay.
can get scheduled, and we'll schedule that all as a special meeting, and that will be noticed in that manner.
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner, go ahead.
Thank you. At the special call meeting, let's take hard actions first, and then the investigation, the second part,
Well
so that
said.
we can make sure
Yes, ma'am.
they're taken care of.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
If,
thank
the folks can see to it for scheduling, if you don't mind, okay? Okay, let's go ahead and move then to presentations. We have a good number of these here today, so that because again, I don't want to have the 20th have a traffic jam, because we have some very, very important issues, so we'll have to move forward with that. So first, we have federal and, oh, yes, sir. And now, just lost it, yeah. And probably would need to discuss it. And so let's go ahead in presentations. Go ahead, sir. You know, and thank you, Councilman, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a little frustrated right this second, okay? You know, we've got very sensitive to the gentleman, the individual who made the comment before. I know I've been on that side of the podium. We ask everybody to do jump through all these hoops, and yet we're not here to listen to it. We have 1, 2, 3, 5 people here. Okay, I dare say that's fair to them. That means we don't have, it doesn't show that we have the respect for their time and their expertise, that we're not here to listen to it. I personally think that many of the people that requested this information aren't here. And I find it disingenuous to ask these presentations to be done at this point. I think we need to move the entire meeting to the 20th, and if we're here to 5 o'clock, then we're here to 5 o'clock.
Sure, and if I may, I was just speaking about that off the microphone with Ms. LeGrand, that given the few people, and we may lose more people, I agree with your sentiments 110%. So we'll move these presentations to the 20th, and if anybody was making the presentations and can't make it to the 20th, then we'll find another date for that. And again, we apologize to anybody who's here for that, accept my sincere apologies for that. We didn't anticipate this, so, yes, sir.
Yes, and Mr. Chair, if the afternoon going to work best, once you get in contact with the members, so be it. Let's do an afternoon meeting.
Yes, sir.
Happy for it.
I have an event, I think it is from 10 to 11 that I'm speaking at, and then after that, 11:30 to whenever I'm good to go. So our scheduling people will deal with that, so, okay. Oh, I'm
Mr. Chair,
sorry, go ahead, sir.
quickly, and I just wanted to kind of expand on what Councilman Schisler was talking about. And we had this conversation at one of our last committee meetings. I think it was the strategic planning meeting. Quorum has continued to be an issue. We've got super important issues that are right here. I mean, if you look at the presentations, you know, this is something that I mentioned at the last meeting. Our federal and state legislative plans need to be talked about. Session starts tomorrow. And so we're going to have, another 2 weeks, 3 weeks before we're going to even be able to address something that should have already been taking place, you know, probably a month ago when it comes to the strategy from a legislative standpoint and from a federal standpoint. Community member projects for for congressional members right now, or I believe they're due on the 16th. I think that we need to start prioritizing these things. We have a lot of people that are depending on us. We have a lot of people that are depending on the decisions that we make at these meetings. And if we aren't able to get these presentations done or action items done in a timely manner, we are failing a lot of people. And I think it's unfortunate that we're in this position right now.
Yeah, it's, anyone else wish to comment on this? Go ahead, ma'am.
Just for the record, we have had quorum issues with our committee meetings. That's definitely accurate. But I would say for this meeting, I don't think we've had quorum issues in the past, and this is a rare and unusual day, and for years, this has happened on the March meeting. So it was unfortunate, I think, that this meeting was scheduled on the March meeting, because this has happened, actually, an issue over and over and over again, the same Monday as the Plant City Parade that many of the commissioners are pretty much expected to take part in. And that's happened repeatedly in March. And it's because we've had turnover, I guess, that the March date hasn't been addressed in the past, and it's really an unfortunate collision in this case, because there's also something else that I think in the city that people were pretty much, anticipated to go. But I don't want to leave the public with the impression that these meetings have quorum issues, because they don't. In general, I mean, I think we can go back. I don't think our regular board meeting has had a quorum issue that I'm familiar with. And I chaired for a year. I don't think that happened, but the committee meetings, yes. And it is unfortunate with this meeting. I think, this meeting would have been better scheduled at another Monday. I think wouldn't have been an issue, but I'd just like to point that out for the record.
And I agree, and today is something of I don't want to call it a perfect storm, but just a bunch of different issues coming together, and I don't think we have had quorum issues. I'll be kept updated on any future quorum challenges that we may have. And additionally, we also spent the first hour speaking on some very compelling issues. We probably could have gotten a lot of the agenda. Things that were before last Thursday were unforeseeable. That's the major intervening cause, I think, in my opinion. But yeah. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I just wanted to respond in recognizing that the scheduling of the meetings is very important. We provide a schedule at the end of the year for approval to the board, the beginning of the year, to ensure that the dates that are presented do not pose conflicts. If this is something, as Commissioner Kemp has mentioned, happens annually, I would, state that when that list comes before the board of proposed dates, to really look at those dates and offer up some, information to staff so that they're aware that that would be a conflict. And then what we could do is change those dates. So I would ask if you look at our upcoming dates on the calendar and take an opportunity to see if you see any future potential conflicts with other events in the region, then we can work on addressing those immediately so we don't have a problem with quorum.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, next we go to our CEO's report, if anything.
So in the packet, or you should have it, what was requested a couple of months ago was an update on the APTA peer review, and then I guess a spreadsheet that shows where we are with the implementation. So you've actually seen the APTA peer review presentation for all the sections, but if we go to the very last slide in this deck, it shows the spreadsheet of the recommendations that APTA proposed and where we are as HART as it relates to implementing those recommendations. So for the most part, the recommendations, and Ms. Jackson, if you can make it a little bigger, for the most part, the recommendations have pretty much been completed. You'll see that a couple of the columns under status, a couple of the rows under the status column are not completely shaded in. So I'd focus on those. So some of those are introducing data-oriented decision-making, establishing internal and external transparency. Those two are at 75%. For the first one, the data-oriented decisions, you have approved several of our requests for more technology. We're also working closely with our vendors to establish processes where we get information from our data software to use to make agency decisions, as well as ensuring that we're really addressing what's in our Title VI plan as it relates to our service levels. The second one in this section is the internal-external transparency. We are using that transparency page on our website to post all documents. We recently did receive the APTA peer review on the operations, and that has been also loaded on the APTA, on our HART website under transparency. I know Director Williams, you had inquired about that last APTA peer review, so it is listed or uploaded there. So we are using that for our external transparency, and then internally, we do have a monthly newsletter where we provide updates. We have weekly leadership meetings, which have been ongoing for the last 2 years. And then the last section where we're at 75% is to consider the succession planning program. So we are realigning our training department to really develop a career pathways, and we have had several conversations with Mr. Campbell and his team on making sure that we have a clear listing of all the opportunities and the pathways to move to the next step. So just wanted to point out those three that are not at 100%, but at your own leisure, you can look at all the other ones, and most of them are ongoing activities, so it's not something that you just check the box. But outside of that, you know, just showing that these are the recommendations from this section, and this is where we are with the implementation.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Real quick, what you just had up there on page 4, scope of review, interview. Can you pull that up? I wanted to know if this is an accurate page as far as the ones in the position that they held, or if, do we have any duplicate? Is any of the guys or ladies have dual responsibility on page 4?
May I respond?
Scope of
So this is a presentation from APTA for work that they conducted between the months of March and May or June of 2021. So this slide represents the people that they talked to when they did their peer review. So it's not a listing of HART employees now or roles that people are in. This just represents people who participated in the APTA peer review session.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, ma'am. Anything else?
That's it, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I have nothing for the chair report today. Next, general counsel's report. Anything additionally?
I don't think we have anything additional. Thank you.
Okay, great. We've had enough, right? Thank you very much. HART Board Committee reports are included in the packet under Section 9. Monthly information reports are in Section 10. Is there any old business? Okay. Is there any new business? Okay. Okay, this concludes the regular business for today. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you. I know, right?